Max Chadwick joins us now with Pro Football Focus, and we wanted to talk to Max about the potential for Hendon Hooker ending up in New York. And Max, we appreciate the time. Thanks for it, and enjoy your breakdown of the potential that Hendon Hooker could win the Heisman Trophy. So we really appreciate the time. Thank you, sir.
No, of course. No, I really appreciate you guys having me on. And yeah, Hendon Hooker has been phenomenal so far this year. Tennessee's been one of the biggest surprises, I think, in college football. They started the year unranked. Now they're number 8 in the country. And one of the biggest reasons for that is their offense led by Hendon Hooker. So yeah, he's been phenomenal this year.
Max, how do you do these odds? And can you tell me where Hendon Hooker stands? I mean, how do you guys evaluate the odds on a Heisman Trophy potential winner?
Yeah, so this article that I wrote was basically just looking at the betting odds. So we have a partnership with BetMGM. So they actually put out the Heisman odds, and I wrote an article breaking down their top candidates. But he's plus 1,300 to win the Heisman Trophy right now, which is fourth out of all players, behind only C.J. Stroud, the quarterback for Ohio State, Caleb Williams, the quarterback for USC, and then Bryce Young, the quarterback for Alabama. So it's some pretty elite company to be in right now. And he's got a 90.5 PFF grade this year, which is the 7th highest in the country among quarterbacks. So he's really been good, especially as a runner so far. So yeah, his betting odds right now are plus 1,300 to basically 13 to 1 odds to win the Heisman Trophy right now.
That's pretty good. To
Yeah.
be so he has the fourth best odds right now. I think we lost him.
Mm-hmm.
He has the fourth best odds right now.
Yes. Fourth best behind C.J. Stroud, Caleb Williams, and Bryce Young.
Okay. Well, Bryce Young, when did the numbers get updated in terms of Bryce Young and his potential injury? Because I'm hearing that he could be out this week, could be out the Tennessee game. Now, is that factored into your latest rankings, or do you wait and see if he plays?
I probably would wait and see if he plays just yet. But yeah, he like I said, he's third at plus 900 to win the award right now, so 9 to 1 odds. It's kind of weird. I was talking to my friend last night. Like, I think he deserves the Heisman Trophy right now. If I had to give this award out right now, just because I think what he's done is more impressive than, say, C.J. Stroud, who plays in the best offense in college football. Like, Bryce Young has really had to carry Alabama on his back this year. I think he's played better than Stroud has so far too. So yeah, plus 900. Like, I think that's more voter fatigue. I think people just don't want to give, a second Heisman Trophy to Bryce Young, which has only happened once before with Archie Griffin. So I think voter fatigue really is the only thing holding him back from maybe winning a second Heisman Trophy.
No, that's very fair. Man, I'm sure you want to jump in here. Go right ahead.
So my question is, we see Bryce Young, and like you said, he's doing great things. He did get injured in the Arkansas game. If he doesn't play against Texas A&M, how bad will that hurt his chances?
That's a good question. I think it will hurt it. I think that's a pretty big game. Texas A&M is they're not doing great this year, but they're still probably a top 40 team in college football. If he doesn't go, that could spell an upset for Alabama because Jalen Milroe is their backup quarterback. He looked really not great as a passer last week. Was very good as a runner. So Alabama probably won't have much of a passing game to speak of this weekend if Bryce Young isn't able to go. So that could be tough. And, missing any game as a Heisman Trophy candidate is really hard because it's a big stat award. And, you take away a game, your stats can be worse for it. So, yeah, Bryce Young, if he misses this weekend, it could spell trouble not only for Alabama in terms of getting their first loss of the year, but Bryce Young in terms of winning a second Heisman Trophy.
Yeah, and I'm hearing too that he could miss 2 games. So
yeah,
at that point, you could. I want to say that either Johnny Manziel or Baker Mayfield missed 1 game in it. I can't remember which one, but if you miss 2 games, you're pretty much out of the running.
Yeah, Dave, you mentioned it's the Tennessee game too. Like, that is a massive, massive, massive game. Like, that's number 8 Tennessee you're going up against. So, like, you take away that game, and a lot of people say, "Oh, what's your Heisman game?" That is probably that probably would be his Heisman game going up against number 8 Tennessee because they don't play Georgia this year. So Tennessee is that next best team, the SEC, that he's got to go up against. And you take away that game, that's going to be tough for Bryce Young to make enough of a resume to win the Heisman Trophy, in my opinion.
No, Bryce Young and I are both missing that game, which is unfortunate because I have to go to a wedding, but I talked about that yesterday. So
Fall
yeah,
weddings are
I
the
know.
worst. The fall weddings are the worst.
In the South
Stop
too,
it.
Max.
They should be
Where you're
outlawed.
located, they should be outlawed.
They
There should
really
be
should.
illegal.
Yep,
You must
totally
really
agree
love your
with that.
friend or family that much, because I if it was anyone else, I'd be like, I don't know if I can go to that. I'm sorry.
I had tickets to that game too, and it's my husband's friend. So I
Oh,
have to be the good wife and go. It's in Arizona, and I'm sure it will be a great time, but I will be with an earbud in
yeah.
on my phone. That's
You
just
had
how it's going to
tickets too?
happen.
Wow.
Yeah,
Wow, your
I had
husband
tickets.
your husband's a lucky guy. I might,
Thank you.
give divorce a second look there if I were
It's okay. We got married in January, so I'm going to stick it out for a while.
That's
So
awesome.
She's no
coming back.
Giselle, Max. She's no Giselle.
I'm not a Giselle. I'm the Tom Brady in this situation.
Yeah, you definitely.
Yeah. So coming back to the Heisman talk, we see Will Anderson up
Mm,
there. People put him up there. Do you think that that is just like kind of a thing for clout, or do you think he has a legitimate chance to win it? I don't see another defensive player winning it besides
yeah.
the Charles Woodson. I just don't. But what are your thoughts there?
I'm completely with you, man. I think Will Anderson Jr. He's been really good this year. I don't think he's been as good as the couple years past. I think that's a big, a lot of people just are saying, oh, Will Anderson Jr. because he's going to be, guaranteed unless he gets hurt, which hopefully he does not, but guaranteed top 5 pick in the NFL draft. Which he's a phenomenal player. He's graded out okay this year. He's a 73.8 grade right now, which is decent. Really good run defender though, and I just don't think like Aiden Hutchinson was arguably the best player in college football last year. If you ask me who I would give the Heisman Trophy to, it might have been him. If he can't win that award, I don't know who can. And you remember like Ndamukong Suh a long time ago, like 2009, I think it was. He was phenomenal. He was the best player in college football. He still didn't win the Heisman Trophy. Like Charles Woodson was able to score touchdowns and all that. Defensive line is a tough ask to win the Heisman Trophy. So I don't think Will Anderson Jr. really has much of a chance, unfortunately, this year.
The other thing that hurts Will Anderson Jr. too is he's equally good against the run
Yeah.
as he is rushing the passer. So Jadeveon Clowney, I hear that comparison. I think Will Anderson's far better because he's better against the run. But Clowney would be the one to put up the sack numbers that might get voters enticed. So, so what has to happen in your mind for Hendon Hooker to ultimately win the award? Well, let's start with what has to happen for him to be invited, because yes, I have reserved my hotel room in New York. So,
Two of them.
Two of them, yes. What has to happen for him to get invited as far as the big landscape of college football?
Well, you mentioned that Alabama game a couple, minutes ago. I think that's the game. That's the game where he can really show, hey, if Bryce Young is able to go, which I think is important for him there. And if Bryce Young's able to go and Tennessee could pull off the upset, and not only that, but Hendon Hooker looks like the better quarterback in that game, that will say a lot to a lot of people. And all of a sudden, Tennessee, it's going to be tough for them to unseat Georgia in the SEC East, but like they can all of a sudden say, hey, we're here, and this is a legit top 5 team in the country. So I think beating, Alabama, maybe even beating Georgia too, which would be really difficult for Tennessee to do. But if they could do both those things and Hendon Hooker can look phenomenal in both those games, he'll have a real shot. And even if they lose both those games, if he looks really good in those two, he could definitely get invited to New York.
I think CJ Stroud would really have to stumble, or something would have to happen for him not to win it at this point, don't you think?
Yeah, he's got he's plus 150 in betting odds, which basically means he has a 40% chance, according to Las Vegas, of winning the Heisman Trophy, which is this early in the year. That is very significant. But again, that offense makes it so easy. Like I found a stat here at PFF where 87% of Stroud's throws this year have been to an open receiver. For comparison, Bryce Young, 73%. Caleb Williams, who's another top Heisman contender, only 61%. So like CJ Stroud is continuously throwing to open receivers, and that Ohio State offense. I was telling my friend last night, like that Ohio State offense is going to go down as like one of the best in recent memory, like the 2019 LSU offense, the 2020 Alabama offense.
Yeah.
And if you remember, Joe Burrow won the Heisman Trophy from that offense. Devontae Smith and Mac Jones were both Heisman candidates, with Devontae Smith winning the Heisman Trophy in the Alabama offense. Like, I feel like people are going to look at that Ohio State offense and be like, we have to give the Heisman Trophy to someone from that offense because of how special it is. So I think CJ Stroud is kind of benefiting right now from playing in that unbelievable offense, when really, is he really like elevating it that much compared to other guys? I don't think so.
Do you happen to have that number of throwing to open receivers for Hooker? Is that something that you could pull up?
Yes, I did. And actually, I think he was tied with CJ Stroud at 87%. So Josh Heupel is a offensive wizard. I love Josh Heupel. And yeah, their offense does create a lot of open throws for Hendon Hooker. But like I mentioned before, he has the highest rushing grade too. I know he's not done that as much, but he's the highest rushing grade among quarterbacks too this year. So at least he's giving at least a dual threat element that Stroud really isn't right now.
So I've never really thought about this because I'm not a gambler, but I've had a Heisman vote for about 15 years, and I talked. Well, it's not a big deal. I think but I talk to a lot of the Heisman voters when I'm making my vote and kind of get their thoughts. So I pretty much, except for maybe 1 year in those 15, I knew who was going to win it. Mm-hmm. So how much can I bet the week before the Heisman, or do they shut it down if Stroud is so obviously going to be the winner?
No, so the odds will go down probably. Like, so I'm trying to remember last year. Like, I'm guessing by the time the Heisman rolls around, like Stroud will be minus 500 or whatever. It basically means you got to bet $500 to win $100. Whereas right now, if you bet $100, you win $150 for CJ Stroud. So I would guess he has significantly minus odds as we get that late in the season. So far. But yeah, he right now, I mean, the fact that he's already 40% chance to win the Heisman at this point in the season, we're not even at the midway point yet. That says a lot. And I think, yeah, you mentioned he's the heavy favorite to win the Heisman Trophy right now.
So I would be basically betting for him not to get hurt if I place my bet today, right?
Yeah. I would imagine so. Again, I don't think he deserves it. I don't think he's been as good as other guys. But yeah, right now, I mean, he seems like the guy to beat right now.
Wow. Anything else from you, Amanda? Go ahead.
Yes, tons. So question on I know that, let's be honest, Ohio State hasn't faced the best competition. They don't typically every season until they get later in the year. Mm-hmm. They do have Michigan coming up, which could be a big stumbling block for them because Michigan's playing lights out for the most part at the moment. They always have trouble with Ohio State. I mean, it gets bad sometimes. Mm-hmm. Could you see CJ Stroud making that stumble? And we also see, Ohio State quarterbacks go to the NFL and just suck. Yeah. So is that something that they'll take into consideration as well, that maybe it's the offense and not just CJ Stroud?
I think they definitely will. That's a great question because, yeah, like Justin Fields, you look at him now in the NFL, and I think most of that is I'm a huge Justin Fields believer. So I think that's a lot to do with how bad the Chicago Bears organization is rather than Fields. But he has not played well so far. And Stroud, yeah, I mean, I think that Ohio State offense, like I mentioned, is a huge, huge thing. Like, not only is Ryan Day really smart at scheming open receivers, but they got the best receiving core in the country. They got two superstar running backs in Meion Williams and Travion Henderson, one of the best offensive lines in the country. And they've been putting up all these points, and the best receiver in college football has been out. Like, Jackson Smith-Njigba has not played really at all this year. Once you add him to that offense, like, this is going to go to a different stratosphere. Like, they have the best offense in college football already. You add the best receiver in the country back to that offense. I don't know how you're going to stop them, which is why I think that ultimately they're going to win the national championship this year. But I think, going in that Michigan game, like, Michigan's got a pretty good defense. Stroud had some issues with Michigan last year. That will be a huge game for him. And I think, we talk about the Heisman game for these guys. I think Michigan is probably his Heisman game this season. That's going to be the toughest team he plays all year, that and Penn State. But yeah, he's going to need to show out against Michigan for at least me to put him at the top of the Heisman list.
Max, great stuff. How do we follow your work?
Yeah, so you can follow me at Chad_Maxwick on Twitter or on TikTok or whatever. Then I write about 4 articles a week for Pro Football Focus at pff.com. So you can check that out too.
All right, great stuff, man. We will talk to you soon. We appreciate that. That was a good breakdown. And if I can give you any inside scoop on who to bet on the week before the Heisman, I'll give you a
Please,
shot.
please. I'm struggling with my financials right now because I've been losing so many bets in college football. So I could use a win in college football for sure.
All right, you'll get there. I appreciate it, Max.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.
Great stuff from Max Pro Football Focus. So basically what Hendon Hooker obviously needs to continue to play well. Something needs to happen to CJ Stroud, and I'm not hoping for an injury, but maybe he gets a DUI or something. And
Wow.
well, I'm not, but something has to happen to Stroud. And then Bryce Young could be out 2 weeks. That could be enough to open the door. There are a lot of ways that this magic could happen, and nobody ever wins it in September. If so,
No.
Peyton Manning would have won it. Well, he lost to Florida in September, but nobody ever wins it in September. Daniel's saying if Hooker and Young both play next weekend and we somehow pull off the win, I feel like Hooker jumps to 1 or 2. I think he would jump to 2. I think if Tennessee somehow beat Alabama, especially if Bryce Young didn't play, which we just keep hearing that could be the case, then I think Young drops out of it to some extent. I do think there is voter fatigue, which is completely unfair. And I think that Hooker is suddenly number 2. Now, there's Caleb Williams at Southern California, but there is also, fair or not, an East Coast bias that we've talked about. And then we have some sort of board that you're pulling up. What is do you mean pull that up? What is this?
Yes, this is my Heisman board. So
Okay.
this is at the beginning of the season. These are the people who are named like in the Heisman running pretty much. And these are the people I've already taken out and eliminated from my Heisman board. So
Okay, so
we
for
see
those that are on the audio only, can you you're going to have
yes.
to draw this out for us or describe it?
Okay. So there are 18 names that started on the Heisman board at the very beginning of the season. Out of those 18, 5 are already eliminated from the Heisman, just based on sheer record or performance or, what injury, things of that nature. So 5 are already out. But as you see, 3 of the people on the list are Alabama players. Hendon Hooker's on there as well. Travion Henderson's on there. Will Rogers, Sam Hartman. But I'm keeping a Heisman board like every week so that whenever these players come out and they just kind of fall flat on their face or something of that nature, I just X them out. Like Anthony Richardson's gone, KJ Jefferson's gone, Tyler Van Dyke is gone, Bijan Robinson gone, Dylan Gabriel gone, and more than likely we will see Stetson Bennett gone shortly, if not already.
I would take the guys I would take off that list is DJ Uiagalelei. I would take off Will Rogers. I just can't see him winning it. The one that might come out of nowhere would be Jahmyr Gibbs. I don't think Will Anderson can win it, but he, of this list, is the guy that I would pick if I were an NFL franchise into discussion, and there's not a close second. And so looking at your list, Stetson Bennett is the one that is kind of the X factor. There are some people that like to give the career award, but nevertheless, we'll see.